Hello, I'm Dustin Wunderlich, Communications Director for the University of Washington College of Education, and I'm here today with Django Paris, the James and Cherry Banks Professor of Multicultural Education. Django, can you tell us a little bit about the session that you're chairing today, Centering Us?
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this session. So it's a presidential session. And so we went through a series of sort of screening processes to see, like, what are you going to be presenting? How is it related to what we're talking about this year at the conference? I'm particularly excited about this session as we have newly launched the Banks Center for Educational Justice at the University of Washington. And there are people that I've been learning with for some years who have been involved in center work, right, and thinking about what's possible in terms of these institutional spaces for doing, in particular for doing racial justice work, work around sovereignty and resurgence for Native people and Indigenous people, intersectional work around thinking about racial justice as it intersects with gender and gender identity, with sexuality, with ability, disability, with land, with migration, with language. And so there's a particular set of people that I get to be in conversation with today. So all the directors of these spaces are either Black or Indigenous. And that is also really important in terms of some of the coalitional work we're looking to do around Black and Indigenous education.
And can you tell us, as director of the Banks Center, a little bit about the work of that center?
Sure. So I can give you a little bit of a long view, but we are only 5 months in to our work on Coast Salish homelands at the University of Washington, at the College of Education, and carrying on the extraordinary legacy of James Banks and the Center for Multicultural Education, and also, of course, of Cherry Banks and her work at Bothell and as affiliated faculty in the Center for Multicultural Education. And so as we look to this new era of the work, building on that legacy, some of our commitments are continue to be around racial justice, continue to be around intersectionality, as I was talking about before, continue to be around coalitionality between communities in education. And in particular, we're really thinking about Seattle, we're thinking about Washington State, we're thinking about the local, we'll continue to think about the global, but we're really thinking about what ongoing projects of educational justice are communities involved in, and in what ways can we partner and join those projects. So some examples of those, even in our first 5 months, we've tried to be busy, but in a way that joins ongoing work, right? So we recently had the Teaching for Black Lives gathering, which both celebrated the book Teaching for Black Lives, the Rethinking Schools book, Teaching for Black Lives, from Jesse Gagopian, who was a graduate of the teacher education program and is an ethnic studies teacher and doing extraordinary work at Garfield High School and other places. Wayne Au, who's at Bothell, and Diane Watson. And they co-edited this volume that's just a really wonderful resource. And it was part of, so we organized the gathering around the Teaching for the Black Lives Matter at School Week in February. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so this is something that Seattle's been a really strong location, an originary location in many ways for that movement that's now national and even global. And so we wanted to see if we could be useful in that week. And so we were able to invite some high school youth to campus and the editors and some organizers to talk about that work. So that's an example of joining ongoing work, right? Mm-hmm. And then the one other example I'll give is that we are about to host the Gathering on Native Teacher Education in a couple weeks here, maybe about a month. And that's an opportunity to host scholars, Yakima scholar Michelle Jacob from the University of Oregon, and Alutiiq scholar Leilani Sabzalian, also from the University of Oregon, and they have a Native cohort teacher program that they've been running there for some years. And then Hopi scholar Jeremy Garcia and Dene scholar Valerie Shirley, who are at the University of Arizona, who also have an Indigenous teacher education project that they've been running. And this again comes from conversations with community members, particularly around the long-term work that people have been doing in the college and at the university to center Native and Indigenous education. I'm thinking folks, of course, like Megan Bang and Beth West and Filiberto Barras Lopez and others, and the ongoing partnership with tribal communities and nations in the state and their desire and ask of us to be better partners in terms of thinking about, even with those important partnerships, in terms of thinking about the preparation and sustaining of Native teachers. So this is an opportunity for us to build with people, who are doing this work in other indigenous and Native contexts, and come and share with all the extraordinary work that's going on, and kind of think forward.
Now, what are maybe a couple opportunities that you think the Banks Center and similar centers around the country may have to strengthen their work together in collaboration and in partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in many ways this session is an attempt to really actualize some of those opportunities. And so we learn both formally and informally from each other. What's possible in an institutional space? What kind of things are you doing, right? In what ways are you having people come through campus? In what ways are you linking with the community? What are the projects of your work around justice or decolonization or education liberation, or right? And so we've been learning from each other in ways, and I, as a new center director, have been learning a lot from many of these folks for a long time. But this is an opportunity to think strategically about what the initiatives are and the community partnerships are across our work, and to think about in what ways is what we're doing local, and in what ways can it offer, across contexts. In what ways is it important for us to share and build together.
And then finally, what's something that's particularly promising in your mind about some of the work that is happening towards educational justice right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, there's so much to think about in that question. We know, of course, that schools have been designed to and continue to live out, settler colonial legacies of land theft, genocide, and enslavement, that they have reproduced and continue to reproduce in many ways, inequality, racialized inequality, and so on and so forth. And also that we know that communities have always pushed for an education that sustains their young people, right? And so for me, seeing examples like the Black Lives Matter at School Week and the ethnic studies work that's going on in Seattle Public Schools, right, and Edmonds Public Schools, for instance, right, seeing and then trying to join that in some small way as a center and as an institution to say, how can we amplify, hold this up, or offer anything? Research, space, or otherwise, right, or other sorts of partnerships. Seeing the work that's going on around, really nationally and globally around around Native and Indigenous education, but in particular, I'm thinking about the work around teacher education, and so I think that is the work that I hope the center can contribute to, and those are some of the places that I'm really seeing educational justice, sovereignty, liberation, resurgence, actualized in beautiful ways.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely. Pleasure.